Hello everyone and welcome to On Tour. It's the review cricket show where we look back at what happened with West Indies and New Zealand as they start their test series. I'm Barry Wilkinson. Welcome again to Flow Sports. Well, the West Indies lost that T20 series 2-0. They're looking for some redemption in this test series and they're hoping to find it in Hamilton. On day one, the West Indies, the only thing they did really right was to win the toss, and they chose to field first on a very green pitch. And the result was, after day one, that the New Zealand team are 243 for 2. We look back at what happened, and I have my guest with me, as usual, Tino Best, our regular and house analyst. And we also have Vinod Mamchan, our lead correspondent there in Trinidad and Tobago, and Philo Wallace, the former Barbados and West Indies opening batsman. Gentlemen, welcome again to On Tour as we review the West Indies on day one. I want to start with you first of all, Tino. Winning the toss and fielding first on that kind of service, was that the right decision?
Yeah, it was. As a bowler back in my day.
I forgot I'm talking to a bowler. That's probably the worst person to ask that question. But tell me.
To be honest, if you rock up at a test match and you see a pitch, a surface as green as that, you definitely want to bowl. But in New Zealand, from touring there, from past experiences, that doesn't really help. The surface was still very slow, right. And I don't think that the West Indies bowled enough balls to hit the stumps. Now, a guy like Jason Holder, who's going to hold the innings, I just felt that Kemar did not take enough drives. Right. Shannon would look good in the first and second spell. I thought Shannon bowled a lot better than the group in terms of trying to hit the stumps. But really and truly, Azari was a little disappointing. But all in all, look, it's a test match. It's 5 days, and I don't want to read in too much to it. The pitch looks a good surface, and the New Zealanders are right at home.
Let's go to our analyst, of course, overseas. Let's go to Trinidad and Tobago. Vinod Mamchan, you look at how the West Indies, first of all, chose their 11. Was the 11 perhaps the best one to go in with, considering the conditions?
I think given the resources we had in New Zealand there, Barry, that was the right 11 to go with. Raheem Cornwall misses out, but Ruston Chase, I think he does quite an efficient job as an off-spinner on that team. And given the nature of the trap, you really needed the 4 fast bowlers.
Philo Wallace, you look at the team, you look at how the West Indies bowled. What were your impressions, if I had to ask you for a brief summary of day one?
But day one, obviously, Barry, will go to New Zealand. When you look at that surface, that green surface, and with Jason Holder winning the toss and inserting New Zealand, you would expect West Indies to make some more inroads rather than New Zealand just losing 2 wickets for 243 runs. You would say that New Zealand weathered the storm. It was green, but it wasn't fast. And I thought that coming into the back end of the first day, which was obviously a longer session because of the rain delay, I thought our bowlers, the West Indies bowlers, started to get it right. But they got it right when 2 batsmen were already set, that one in Williamson and Ross Taylor. And we cannot forget the work, I think, of Tom Latham. He continues to show his quality as an opening batsman. He left a lot of deliveries, and he weathered that early storm. Obviously, he had a debutant with him who went early. But when you look at Latham and the way how he played, and along with Williamson, who is a fantastic cricketer, you cannot believe that this guy, Williamson, was just playing T20 cricket in Dubai. He's just a phenomenal batsman with a fantastic brain. And obviously, New Zealand will go to bed tonight saying, well, look, we've weathered that storm on day one, and they obviously look now to come back and put pressure on day 2.
I've always said you've got Kohli, you've got Smith, you've got Williamson. That's the top 3 for me in world cricket, T20, 50 over, and Test. So I'm not surprised by your comments. Let's start from the top then, Tino Best. Will Young, he showed that inclination during the first class season in New Zealand, got the opportunity to open for New Zealand, but how did he shape up, in your opinion, in his first Test match, making his debut on that kind of surface? Talk me through his very short knock.
Well, really and truly, he came into the game with a big 100 and a 50. So he came in in good nick, as we would say. But this is a different energy, and when you're making your Test debut, it's completely different than when you're playing a first-class game. And he got nicked off. Should have been a regulation catch by Shane Doric. I don't know for the life of me why this young man is wicket-keeping so badly. He's better than that. And then the next ball, Shannon Gabriel just tried to bowl him, tried to get it as full as possible, got it to Nick back, and it was a beautiful delivery, and he got him LBW. Now, as a bowler, you're going to sigh a relief, but you're saying in your mind, how good is my keeper? Wicket keepers made the cricket look good. And I think the over before that, Dow went to reverse the ball and he cuffed it for, I think, a bye. He has to work on his wicket keeping, because really and truly, if you get an opportunity to get the Ross Taylor, who has 10 hundreds at that venue, you've got to take the catches. So really and truly, the young man in his first test match, he's going to get better because he has 80 first-class hundreds. He has about 11 or 12 first-class hundreds, so he can bat. So you're not going to write him off in his first game. So we'll see how he goes for this short series.
We're going to actually talk a lot about Shane Doric in the next segment. I want to just zoom in and talk a little bit now about Tom Latham. Consistent. He's Mr. Consistent for New Zealand, especially in Test cricket. Philo, I want to put this to you because I know that you would have not necessarily played with him, but you know persons who would have. What is special about Tom Latham? Is it his concentration? Is it his array of shots? Or is it a potpourri of everything?
You remember a guy called Mark Taylor from
Yes.
Australia?
Yes.
Former captain.
Do you call him Tubby Tucker?
Similar
Tubby
technique. Similar technique. He knows which balls to leave alone. He plays at the balls that are threatening. The balls are not threatening the stumps. Tom Latham has no business with them. And I think he has the right approach as an opening batsman. He forces the bowler to bowl at him. And when you come too straight, he nicks you into the leg side and picks up the ones and twos. And you can see that he's worked on this game. And he knows his game plan as an opening batsman. He's a seasoned campaigner now in New Zealand Test match team. And I'm happy to see that he's come out on that green surface and showed the West Indies batsmen how you should approach it on such a surface. Broach at the first over, he came around the wicket from the first ball. And he left it on length because he trusted the bounce and obviously the pace of Kemar Roach. So Tom Latham to me is a very good example of how you should open an innings and how you can build an innings.
Do you agree with that, Vinod? Because I know they would have been missing the services of BJ Watling. He's injured. How do you assess Tom Latham coming into this team, not in terms of his consistency, but in terms of another senior role that he continues to play for New Zealand?
Well, Philo had it spot on. I thought what made a difference with him as an opener was the fact that he was leaving balls that he didn't have to play at. And that's his trademark. He left alone. He left well alone. And this is what, he allowed the bowlers to come too straight to him, and then he was able to deal with them. During the course of his innings later on, though, as Philo was saying, he built well. He seems to be one of those players who's he's well organized. And he's going to play well within his means. He's not going to try to be fancy. He's not going to try to be flashy. As you would have seen earlier on, he was just eating up balls, which was what was required at that point in time. A little later on in the innings, though, he started to blossom. Alzari Joseph bowled him 2 short deliveries when the leg side boundary for Tom Latham would have been the shorter of the boundaries. I don't know why that strategy came into play, though, because if you wanted to pepper him, on the body, you would have wanted to have done that at the other end where the boundary was longer. He hit him for a 6 and a 4. So that also allowed him to get comfortable and to start to play his array of shots. But if I may just say one thing about him, he is impeccable when judging where his off stump is.
All right, look, you're watching On Tour as you look back at what happened on day one with the West Indies and New Zealand in Hamilton. When we come back, we're going to take a look especially at Kane Williamson and how good a cricketer he is. We also look at some sloppy West Indies fielding. And as Tino alluded to earlier, the keeping of Shane Doric. It's all to come on Tour. Don't touch that dial. Welcome back to On Tour as we look at the West Indies and New Zealand series. Of course, we're going to join the live coverage in just a moment. But just to refresh you, the New Zealanders resuming on 243 for 2. Tino Best is with me, Philo Wallace and Vinod Mamchan, our lead correspondent. Now, Kane Williamson, KW, this man is lethal. Averages over 50 in Test cricket, just under 40 in one-days and T20s. He's Mr. Consistent. He's the kind of cricketer that he will bat all day and would not recognize that he's 150. He's really a good cricketer. He's on 97. He's going to resume in a moment. When you look at his innings, Tino Best, what has been the hallmark? 14 fours, what has been the hallmark for you of his innings?
The hallmark for me is his concentration and the ability to put away bad deliveries as well. He played a beautiful square drive off of Shannon Gabriel. maybe his 8th or 9th delivery faced. And I said, Kane is going to make a big one today because he's so much class. He's Mr. Consistent. I myself have got him out a couple of times, but I've played with him in the Barbados Tridents, and
yes,
the way that he prepares, his preparation, his mindset, and going into a game, I've seen it firsthand, and he's a phenomenal cricketer. And I can only hope that the West Indies can nick him off early in the morning, and hope that he doesn't score a big one, because Kane is one of those guys, when he gets in, it's a double hundred. He's not going to show the West Indies bowlers any mercy whatsoever.
Some people say he looks like Harry Potter in his demeanor. He is a wizard, I can tell you that. I also want to say that on Facebook, somebody wrote, when he was only like 13 runs, somebody wrote, please wake me up when Kay Williamson gets 100. Well, you can get up because it's almost there. Philo, Kay Williamson, what is special about this little man? 22 centuries, he's been captain in New Zealand from the time he was 21. 6 years on, he's gone on to really make a new name for himself. He actually has 21 centuries, he's on the verge of 22.
A little man with a big heart and a fantastic brain, Barry. He's a very good cricketer. He's 97 not out. He's faced 219 balls and hit 16 fours.
Yo.
And not a 6.
Yeah.
That shows you the class on the van on a pitch that is green. He came in and he just weathered the storm. He just looked and waited and waited. And when he got in, he showed his class. He played a shot off from Roston Chase, an extra cover drive that was pleasing to the eye. And he hit it all along the ground, and it just sped away. And you could just see that this guy enjoys playing cricket. And I think that when you look at him, you have to do a complete analysis of how balanced he is at the crease. He's very, very still at the crease. He gets into the right positions more often than not. I remember there was a period that Alzari Joseph was bowling well late in the evening. And Kay Williams, he bowled about 3 maidens to Kay Williamson. And it was unbelievable how Kay Williamson just came out of it. He just batted like it was normal. The man has bowled 18 good balls. That's okay. I'm going to just survive the 18 good balls. And that's the only time I really saw him in trouble in that innings. But you can see that he's a deep thinker, and he's very understanding of conditions. And he knows his role in that New Zealand side. You know, and as you said, he's been leading that side for a long time. He's taken on. He took from Brendan McCallum, who we know Baz is a flash bam, wham, bam, very quick. But Kay Williamson has come in and he has enforced his style into New Zealand cricket. And I think it's a style that will continue for a very long time.
So 243 for 2. Ross Taylor is there, had a bit of a chance. He's on 31. We're going to soon get to that live action. But I want to zoom back in on something that I thought Tino would have alluded to earlier. And that was the keeping. That is the keeping of Shane Doric. To me, when I saw Shane in England, I thought that, you know, he wasn't watching the ball quite a lot. He actually got hit in his face. Seeing him today, or yesterday rather, he made some blunders. There's no question about that. I'm going to leave this to the experts. Tino, who has played at the highest level, Philo, who has played at the highest level. Tino, you actually bowled the ball and it burst the gloves of Shane Doric at the time, and he got hit in his face. What is it about Shane? Does he take his eyes off the ball sometimes a bit too much?
Well, as a level 2 coach,
yes, coach.
I will honestly say Shane is not watching the ball into his gloves long enough, and confidence is a very serious thing when you're catching the ball. I don't think his confidence is there. I think he gets beats for pace too much, and it's something that's going to mess with his mindset, his confidence as a player.
Philo, I'll come to you. You're also expert in this area. What is Shane Doric doing wrong as we look at some of the blunders he had, and even he had a good take in the end. But we look at some of the blunders he had. What is he doing wrong?
I think, as Tino says, he's not watching the ball into his gloves. And one thing I realize about Shane Doric is that he always have problems with Shannon Gabriel. When Shannon Gabriel puts in the extra pace, Shane Doric seems not to be able to gather the ball. I even saw today Jason Holder, the captain, was talking to him as well about wicket-keeping. So it could be a concern that he's not working hard enough. Obviously, his feet are not in the right position, and his gloves are all muggled. And that ball that comes at his head, he's not a good student of reverse cupping the ball, and which is sad because he had that problem in England. He's going to New Zealand, where conditions are similar, and we're seeing the same problems again that he had in England, in New Zealand. Has Shane Doric been working hard in the build-up to this test match and his keeping and his glove work? These are questions that need to be answered by the management staff. Because what we're seeing, what we saw earlier today, is not a true reflection of what West Indies need in a good keeper. He's a good keeper, but I just think he lacks confidence with certain balls in relation to taking them. And I think his problem is that when the express ball comes around, he just don't know how to handle it. And it's very sad because today with that edge too, he went and he just dived at the ball. He never even extended his arms to get the gloves to a ball. He just dived and left the ball, and the ball went down to the boundary for 4. So those are things that you're saying that he's not confident at all taking the ball when he's at high speed.
I want to just delve in a little bit to the bowling. We saw pretty good bowling performance in terms of not being over in your economy rate. Roach 1 for 53. Jason Holder bowled 8 maidens, 3 of them were consecutive. He had none for 25. Should have had a wicket. Let's look at this wicket that he should have had. Jason Holder actually knocked the edge or the under edge of Latham. No one appealed except for Bravo, a little from Doric, but it was a mute appeal. Jason should have had a wicket. Why did he hear that edge, Tino West?
I have no idea, Barry. I used to appeal for everything.
Yeah, we know that. Wrong man to ask. Wrong man to ask.
And I always believe that, one thing I always heard Roddy Esway, I think I spent like a year with Roddy Esway, and he always said appeal and put the Empire under pressure. And we just look nostalgic leading into lunch, beg your pardon. And I could not believe for the life of me that they weren't yelling. I love to play cricket with Darren Bravo, especially Test cricket, because Bravo appeals for everything. Yeah. And I go in unison with him all the time. So I was shocked, and I just thought that the West Indies just didn't, the energy wasn't there. Philo talked about it, alluded about it in the T20 squad. Did we see that live wire today in the field? We didn't see it. So I'm surprised that it didn't went up.
All right, you're watching On Tour. When we come back, we're going to have a quick wrap, and then we head straight to live action in New Zealand. Stay with us. The toughest time to jump up, people, are you ready? Windies in the land, just put up your hands. The toughest time to jump up, people, are you ready? Windies in the land, just put up. So welcome back to On Tour. We are 5 minutes away from the live action in Hamilton. I've got Tino Best, Philo Wallace.
Stop.
All right, cool. So welcome back to On Tour. We're just about 5 minutes away from the live action in Hamilton. I've got Tino Best and, of course, Vinod Mamchan and Philo Wallace with me. We look forward now to day 2. Tino, what is your hope for the Windies on day 2? Who would you tell Jason Holder to start with if you had the opportunity?
Well, to be honest, I'm an optimist. I hope that Azari Joseph starts and Shannon Gabriel, and they can pick up some wickets. Why I will start with them, Barry, is because they're the 2 quickest in the team. We will give the ball to young Azari and say, look, running and bowl fuller and bowl faster. I'm going to take that point out because the point is really for bad bowling. You want to bowl a little straighter, put in that mid wicket and just running and hit the deck to get that ball, get big on a guy like Ross Taylor, who is in good nick, who has a lot of runs at this venue. So I will start with both of them.
It's important, Philo, I would say, for the West Indies players as well to be a bit more sharp in the fielding and back up their bowlers. We saw a little sloppiness on day 1, some balls getting thrown in and going for overthrows and some misfielding as well. In backing up Tino, would you start as well with Azari Joseph and Shannon Gabriel on day 2?
I wouldn't start with Azari Joseph. I would start with Shannon Gabriel and Jason Holder himself.
So you're doing the opposite?
Because Jason, I think... Yeah, Jason is the one who will create the pressure, and Shannon can run in and bowl hard at the other end. So I looking for pace along with stability, and then you have Roach and Azari Joseph. I think that we have to start pairing our bowlers properly. So I will hope that Jason Holder is telling himself, look, I'm going to open the ball on the morning with Shannon Gabriel, and look to try and prize out. Obviously, you got your prize out K. Williamson. If you don't get him out, well, he's looking for a big 100. And we can't undo anything for Ross Taylor. He's playing in his own backyard. His house is only a few meters away. So we need to try and get early wickets. And if it's the person who you're looking to get wickets, Jason is the one who's going to create pressure, bowl better lines. And I feel that if he opens the bowling with Shannon, it will give Shannon an opportunity to maybe pick up some wickets with some loose strokes from those 2 batsmen. It's an all-of-mind game, Barry, and we need to try and get into the heads of these 2 well-established New Zealand batsmen by just playing a little smarter cricket.
Are we going to see Roston chase, Vinod? Do you think that the captain might think perhaps we might catch the Kiwi batsman sleeping a bit and have Roston chase bowl some?
Definitely not early on. I want to agree with Philo. Jason Holder, he normally puts the ball in the right spot, and on that track, he will put the ball in the right spot. So you need him. You need him to be bowling there together with Shannon Gabriel, who has looked your sharpest bowler on show thus far. Jason Holder, if I may just take you back 10 years ago in 2010 at the Under-19 World Cup in New Zealand, Jason Holder was actually the best bowler, the best fast bowler, not only for the West Indies team that got knocked out in the semi-finals. He was the best bowler, fast bowler in the entire tournament that included guys like Josh Hazelwood. So he enjoys those conditions, and if he can just remember, both batsmen, they have to restart tomorrow morning. So once they get on there and Jason Holder can ask questions, you have the firepower of Shannon Gabriel at the other end. I think that may well work in the West Indies' favour.
All right, and before we go, I spoke about the 11 earlier. You actually spoke about the 11, and many people will be thinking that the West Indies' second team, which is the A team, also had a bit of a shock in terms of how they batted on day one of their first-class match. It's good to see a first-class match going on the same time as a test match. But they were 113, 113 for 7, and we saw a century, 133 from Romario Shepherd, batting at number 9. Now, there are two good things about what happened there with Romario Shepherd and the West Indies A team. The first thing is that it shows that there's still some depth in the batting and some sting in the tail. But there's some fallibility. There continues to be a great fallibility with the West Indies batsmen not adjusting and adapting to big scores in New Zealand. I'm talking about the second team.
Yeah, to be honest, it comes back to our first-class structure again. We need to produce pitches that are green and hard and faster. Get back to those days when the great players were playing. I think that we don't play the bouncing ball well. And look, I know the pitch in the test match in Hamilton it looks easy, but it only looks easy until our batsmen get the opportunity to bat on it, Barry. So Romario Shepherd, well played. As a lower order batsman myself, I do like to throw the willow, and he is a good cricketer, a good solid cricketer. What I would love from him is to get a lot fitter, and I think that he can be a very good prospect for West Indies cricket going forward in the future.
And before I wrap up, I want to ask you this question, Phil. Everyone in the Caribbean has been talking about, I want to see Nicholas Pooran play Test cricket. I mean, he has played very little regional first-class cricket. He had the opportunity about 3 seasons ago to play for the Leewards, and that contract was not fulfilled. Do you think that he could be the answer to the West Indies Test team, especially having someone like a Hetmyer who is a bit topsy-turvy?
Well, Barry, I'm happy to see that Nicholas Pooran is playing in those couple of AT games in New Zealand. And I think it's only after that series, that is team series, that we can do an assessment of him. And obviously, I think he needs to play red ball cricket in the Caribbean as well. He needs to choose a franchise, maybe Trinidad and Tobago franchise, but he needs to get into a franchise and play 4-day cricket. I'm not going to sit here and say Nicholas Pooran should play test match cricket. I'm not going to say he's the answer to our problems in the batting. I think that he needs to show application and dedication to red ball cricket and to West Indies cricket, first of all, before we can actually say, yes, he wants to play. But I'm happy for him in New Zealand. He got a 40-odd, and obviously there's signs there, but he needs to obviously play more cricket, and let's see how good he is in over maybe another 5 or 6 or 7 games.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Phil Wallace, former Barbados and West Indies opening batsman. Vera Manchan, our lead correspondent there in Trinidad and Tobago, who's covered a lot of cricket in Hamilton. I know he's missing not being in New Zealand at this moment, getting all that lamb and what else have you. What do they call sweet potatoes? Carnego? They have a particular name for sweet potatoes in New Zealand. And Tino Bess, fresh back from New Zealand after a big contract there. All right, we're going to go live to the action now. 243 for 2. Let's head across to New Zealand and see how things are shaping up for the West Indies in New Zealand in Hamilton.
The top is time to jump up, people, are you ready? When